Okay, so let's talk about some of these deformers in the bottom section of the transform type. I do not use all of these deformers. I'm not going to go over all of them. I'm going to go over the ones that I use the most, just to kind of give you an example. We can talk about these a little bit more later on, but for the most part right now, I'm going to show you the ones I use professionally most of the time. So start out with a polysphere. I'm going to hit Control D a couple of times just to smooth out the poly count, and then I'm going to go over to Geometry, and I'm going to delete my lower. I'm going to go back to my Deformer tab here. I'm going to click on Extender, and now we have a lot of little cones that popped up. And again, if you mouse over, it tells you what each one of the cones does. So this one increases the X resolution, X symmetry. We wanted to adjust this. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that where it was. We have apply creasing. You'll see in just a second what that means. We have Z size, and then we have the extender itself. So what I do with this is I find a geometric shape that I have, depending on the actual shape I'm looking for. Say for instance I want this to be a pill shape. I'll just grab one of these little cones, the orange cones, and drag it out, and now I have a little tic-tac shape. If I wanted this to look like some kind of a flat cube kind of shape that has round edges, grab this top part, I'll drag that up, and so now I have a fairly complicated shape that I could start creating some forms with. We have inflate, so this is going to inflate out some polygroups, and whenever we did the extend option here, it was changing some polygroups for us. We'll get into polygroups a little bit later, but I just wanted to make you aware of what was going on there. So Z size, I can control this side, so I extruded out this side with this specific extender, and this lets me control the scale as I've pulled this out. And so you can see this one's not doing anything because I did not use that extender. Okay, so let's pull this back. So go there, it's fine. And then we applied creasing, and you can see the edge loops that we have extended out. You can see if I pull that, it'll add some creasing in there. That would come in handy if I were going to use Z Modeler. For right now, I'm going to leave that how it is, and that's a fairly complicated shape. Okay, I'm going to leave this shape. I'm going to go ahead and click on the gear, and you'll see I have some new options here. I can delete what we just did. I can do a full reset. I can reset the options here, or I can accept it. I'm going to go ahead and accept this. So now if I click back, you'll see that those options are gone. Still have all the deformers here. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is I want to show you flatten. I use flatten quite a bit. You'll see that this has quite a few little little cones. And I'm going to grab this cone, and I'm going to start to pull it to the interior, and watch what happens. We actually start slicing into our shape there. I want to go ahead and turn on my poly frame, because I want you to notice what's happening is this, basically if you look at this plane, it's taking all of your vertices and is just starting to flatten those down to the same plane. So even if I go here and I look at this to the edge, you can see all of my vertices are still here. It didn't actually delete any of them. They're still there. They're just flattened. So this is something that you're going to have to think about whenever you are making shapes, because if you have a shape like this that's tapered or like a sphere, if I pull this down, once I cross the equator and start to go down, so we'll get to like here. So this one is a little difficult. Let's see, this is going to be a little difficult to show on this one. So what I'm going to do is, let's go and get a cylinder, or a sphere. This is easier to show. So I'm going to hit flatten, and I'm going to pull, and you can see as I pull in, it's starting to flatten. It's pushing all of the verts down. But once I cross this equator, it's actually still flattening, but I'm getting this weird little lip here. Okay, so whenever you're using this on a sphere or any shape, you don't want to go past the equator, because once you start going past that, you'll see that you start to get like this little lip. So just keep that in mind whenever using the flatten tool. We have slice topology. You can see that actually just gave me a crease. I don't use that very often. And we have our symmetries and things like that. So you can see that whenever I'm adjusting this, it's actually creating some different forms. I don't use this specific symmetry very often. I mainly use this flatten tool because this allows me to get some very complicated shapes when I start to slice into objects. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit full reset, and I want to go and do an extend. I'm going to accept, and now I'm going to hit Control D 2 times, and now you can see that I have quite a few more polys. Now I'm going to use bend arc. So this is telling me that I need to basically get rid of my subdivisions here. So I'm going to go ahead and click delete the lower. Then I'm going to do bend arc, and you see that I have a bunch more cones. So if I grab this green cone and pull, you can see that I can get some really funky shapes. Now if I rotate to the side and hold shift 90 degrees and I grab this cone, you can see that I can control the angle that this is stretching out. I can twist, so that's not doing anything because it's cylindrical. I have radius, so I can kind of control that. I have this bend, some different shapes here, different twists. I have different, oh, that's pretty crazy. Got some different kinds of things you can do, and so you can see if you start to manipulate these, you can get some pretty crazy shapes. That's a little more than what I would use it for, because I use a lot of simple shapes to get my overall forms, and then I go from there. So I can pull this out. You can see that if I wiggle this around, I can get some really crazy shapes, but also get some weird deformations. So you have to be real careful there. And that is the bend arc modifier.